So we need to strengthen our ability to hear in noisy places because the world is noisy. Making music is one of the best ways to strengthen the hearing brain, especially we know that musicians across the life, people who, not professional musicians, just people who make music, who are good at making sound to meaning connections, are better at making sense of sound because that's kind of what they do. We did work in elementary schools and in Chicago public high schools looking at the effect of musical experience on the nervous system. And what we were able to discover is that the kids who made music in quiet and in noise, their brain responses were pretty darn good. Whereas the kids who did not make music, their brain responses in quiet were pretty good, but in noise, the minute it became challenging. So importantly, our brain changes based on the sounds of our lives. So it's really important for better and for worse to be involved, interacting with the good sounds. This is the brain response of a kid who makes music. And here is a little guy who does not make music. There's nothing we could do. This is just the kid's brain response to sound. And we can train with auditory training, computer-based programs. This is some work we did in our lab in older adults and found that, in fact, hearing a noise got better as people learned to make sound to meaning connections. And importantly, when they engaged in 8 weeks of learning to make these sound to meaning connections, the neural timing of their response to sound speeded up. As we age, all these different kinds of sounds, unaltered speech, faster speech, competing speech, reverberation, interrupted speech, it gets worse. It already starts when we're 20, 30, but as we get older, it is harder to hear in noise. But we can work against that. We can see a brain response as we get older. It gets noisier, less precise. But if you're someone who is making sound to meaning connections, say you make music, if this is one of the best things that we can do, even if you've made music in your past, this helps you in your future. And of course, healthy aging starts early. So, we can really think about ways that we can use sound for brain health. Reading aloud. And being physically fit is important, as I will get to in a minute, because now I'm going to talk about noise inside the head. So our neurons are always on. There's always this electricity happening. And, some of you are familiar with tinnitus. And tinnitus, we know very little about tinnitus other than it's a very pervasive problem. It's a ringing in the head, and it is much more prevalent than previously thought. Little kids have it, can have it. People who have completely normal hearing thresholds can have it. But what we do know is that tinnitus can be caused by loud sounds. I'm sure after I came back from New York, after being on the plane, and I'm lying in bed, my nice quiet bed, and suddenly, I don't usually have tinnitus, but after having heard all of the sound, or you come back from a concert, this tinnitus happens. But there are many other causes, and they're largely unknown. Again, in animal experiments, it's possible to look at the neural noise and what the effect of safe levels of noise has on this internal neural noise. And again, the data are really clear that animals that are reared in moderate level sounds, noise, have noisier brains. And when we looked at kids who are raised in poverty, it was really clear that these are kids living in neighborhoods that are extremely noisy. These are kids who are not getting a lot of sound to meaning linguistic stimulation, and they, biologically, we measure their responses, they just have noisier brains. And you can think of the noise as kind of like static, right? But if you're an athlete, so we're doing work with the Northwestern elite athletes, and we have discovered that our elite athletes have excessively quiet brains. So, a typical person has this neural noise going on, but the athlete has an especially quiet brain, which enables the athlete to be aware and responsive to all kinds of information in the environment. So, what you've all been waiting for.